Hello, folks. I'm Chris Daly, and I'm always privileged to engage in dialogue with Jamaicans doing, or people of Jamaican ancestry doing marvelous stuff. And boy, we have a historic moment today, as you'll find out shortly. It is my privilege and pleasure to enter into dialogue with Dave Neslyn. She's an executive coach for both individuals and groups, and she enters into organization where there's no conflict of interest. She's made significant contribution to fields of both personal and career growth in both the public and the private sector, in banking, in local government, in commerce. And she's taken all this rich talent and practice it voluntarily in brown and black communities to make a difference to raise the quality of life for folks. So, folks, please lean in and listen carefully as this gentle lady shares with us her life. Welcome, Dame, to our conversation this morning.
And it's such a pleasure, Chris. I am delighted to be here with you. Yes.
Fantastic. As we said, you have Jamaican roots. So tell us a little about those roots. Give us
Okay.
some bearing.
So I was born in Niagara, St. James, which is approximately 22 miles from Montego Bay. I grew up in Elderslie, which is bordering. So Elderslie is in St. Elizabeth, which is bordering St. James. And my mother was born in Niagara, and then she left Niagara and went to Spanish Town. My father was born in Retirement, St. Elizabeth, and lived in Elderslie. So Retirement is about 5 miles away from Elderslie. So, and my mother was Lynette Morris. So I'm the third child for my mother. You know what Jamaican families are like.
Yeah.
And the second child for my father. So my father and mother did not marry. My mother went on to Spanish Town, where she met her husband, and she had another 10 children with her husband. And
Yeah.
so that's how it is. So my mother was Lynette Morris, and my father was well known in St. Elizabeth, Norman Watts.
Fabulous. From those humble and beginnings, your name is Dame Neslyn. That's a title. Tell us a little about that accomplishment.
Oh, so I left Jamaica in 1969 at age 19 to come to England to study nursing. And I had the intention of returning to Jamaica as a public health nurse. And and in order to practice as a public health nurse in Jamaica, one also needed to be a qualified midwife with some experience in midwifery. So I've had a range of experience in the health service, and I then retrained as a teacher and went back into the health service after a while as a senior manager, so deputy director of nurse education for continuing education. And it was a wonderful job, Clive. When I was appointed, I had the telephone call from the director of human resources that said, good news and bad news, which do you want first? And I said, well, come on here. Well, if it's good news, give me the bad news. And then I go dancing with the good. You know, I'm Jamaican. Music in my ear if there's good news. And she said, the bad news is we're not going to appoint you for the job for which you interviewed, but we are going to appoint you within these parameters. Write the job description and tell us how much to pay you. Wow.
Oh, wow.
And I had a wonderful experience, very successful in that. The chief nurse who appointed me went on to another university. A new manager came in, and she said to me, Neslyn, I find you threatening because you're Black, you're a woman, and you're intelligent, and I'm going to block you. At least she was honest. And
Yeah.
so I left and I developed business. I decided no one would ever speak to me like that again, and I am actually going to be an entrepreneur. I couldn't even spell the word, Clive, so, Chris. So I went and be an entrepreneur, and I I looked at where gaps were. And I decided that I would develop a leadership development program for NHS executive. So, and the reason why I'm telling you this is that I engage all my skills and my expertise. And I was then very successful, made a significant contribution to the British National Health Service. And the former Queen honored me 3 times for my work. So I have the MBE for nursing leadership, the CBE for health service development, so Commander of the British Empire for health service development, the Queen's Medal, Windrush Medal for health service innovation, and last year the King made me a dame. So I had a damehood for the development of women and minorities. So a big story.
It's a huge, tremendous story, and congratulations on that. And it tells me something about your way of overcoming challenges, be it people or circumstances. Um, and it's somewhat of the in the DNA of migrants.
Yes.
Just wanted you chose at the age of 19 to go to the UK. Why not the US or Canada or the other principal places? What made the UK the place of choice?
And a number of things came together. So, in terms of my family history, my on my father's side, my grandmother was from Scottish and Irish heritage,
Okay.
and she lost this a significant amount of privileges when she married my father's father, when she married a black man. So she was disinherited.
Mm.
um and so and then my when I left school, I went to work at Industrial Terrace, the Ministry of Communications and Works, and I knew I had always wanted to do nursing. And see, and it was at the time when the new Montego Bay Hospital was being built, and there were a number of engineers who were at Industrial Terrace who were from England. And I spoke to them and I said, and I was working in the registry. So so I got to know these engineers very well. And I said, I want to go and do nursing. And blah, blah, blah. And so they said to me, if you, this is the way you do it, you go to the Overseas Employment Bureau and you say you want to go to England, and so the rest is history. So I was guided in many respects, and I also wanted to understand what England was about.
Wonderful. Were there any other family principles that helped shape your choices here?
No, not really, because my dad. So I grew up with my dad, my father's
Yeah.
side of the family, and he was very dismissive. He was very
Mm.
dismissive of me wanting to be a nurse, and he felt that it would be easier and better to be a teacher, because at least he said that teachers got more respect and nurses had to work hard, don't get much pay, and he was always adamant that his girls should be able to support themselves in life, because you never know what circumstances may meet them. And he felt that, it's not my choice for you.
Okay.
Mm.
I'm glad you listened to your heart and did what you did. It's
Yes.
great. Yeah. You mentioned Windrush and the overhang of Windrush remains, and you've been in the UK in the last several years. Windrush has kind of come to the fore, given the last government's action. Give us your perspective on it, given that you came, at least the tail end of that generation.
Yes, in many respects, you see, the Windrush generation has made significant contributions to public sector and private sector within the UK. So not only in the health services, in communications and the post office, in transportation. There was a time when the the British Rail and London Transport could not really operate without the people who were from the Windrush generation. So they've made a massive contribution, and I'm very proud to be at the tail end of that very courageous generation. And yes, you know what politics is like. Successive
Yeah.
government, they make a mess. The whole point is, racism is part of the British history. I mean, it's part of slavery and all of that and all of that. And so Black people were never really fully appreciated and kept down to quite a large extent. So when people who had been here for that long, when the government did not really recognize their citizenship, that was a great, great miscarriage of justice. But we are strong people. We're overcoming it. It's a shame that some people have lost a lot, died without having that recognition. But it's part of the legacy of having to fight back, isn't it?
Yes, yes. No, you certainly in your life has exhibited that fighting spirit and overcoming spirit, that nanny spirit, I would say, if we want to put it within Jamaican context.
Yeah.
Um, you moved from the healthcare into executive coaching, but then you took all of those skills and you move it into volunteer services within the communities. Connect the dots for us how you decided to make that kind of personal investment within the community.
Well, I in three key ways that I would want to share with you. Firstly, I recognize as a student nurse, I had always had an interest in teaching. So in my first year, I found myself supporting those who had newly come into nursing. So they were in their preliminary entry training. So I'm passing on the knowledge that I have to them. I find in my second year, I was passing on my knowledge to the first years. And in my third year, I was passing on my knowledge to the second years. And, and I often wonder, was that something of trying to meet daddy's expectation? Because he had always wanted me to be a teacher.
Right.
So that's that. And as I said, when I got married, I thought that if children were to come, it would be easier in terms of managing time to be a teacher rather than being a nurse, because you have the holidays, better planned
Right.
holidays and so forth. But children never came. And I worked in colleges and in university, and then I went back into the health service when there was a new way of educating nurses. The focus was very much more on prevention of illness. And by then I had been a health promotion officer. So I wanted to take all those skills and expertise back into the health service. So no wonder when I went back, I was told to write the job description and say how much I wanted to be paid. So
Mm.
so I so that's one element. Now, as a health visitor, which I had been, which is a public health nurse, my fieldwork practice was in Brixton, which people who are not in England would hear about Brixton because it's one of those places where many people from the Caribbean congregated. And I saw how the Black child was made educationally subnormal by systems and practice. So, the because of socioeconomic circumstances, oftentimes there isn't a stable family of man and woman bringing up the child. Sometimes, oftentimes, it's a single woman, and which means that she also has to work. And in order for her to work, the child has to be minded. The child will go to white child minders, and there would be 3 or 4 children that is being minded by the child minder. So, there's a way of controlling the children. They had what you call play pens. So the children put into play pens, 2 or 3, sometimes 3, but often 2 in a playpen without proper stimulation, without being spoken to. They were left to their own. And so I thought, oh my God, this is no way. To bring children up. And by the time then the child gets to school, it's language development is not ahead. So then they say the child is retarded, but the child isn't retarded. The child just did not have sufficient stimulation. Because, we're growing up with grandma and the rest of the extended family. You're always, the child is hearing lots of interaction, being played with, being loved, and so forth. This is a different situation when you put children into playpens. And so that's the first part of the dot. To see that when they go to school, then they don't make the same, they don't have the same educational attainment because they weren't stimulated. And also the expectations. Many white teachers have very poor expectations of Black children. And so therefore, if you look at the chronology of it, if the education is not up to the standard, then by the time they become teenagers, there's a level of dissatisfaction. Oftentimes they fall into bad habits. They fall into bad habits, and so they find themselves sometimes in gangs, and then it's the beginning of the penal justice system. Then oftentimes more, they are in probation, and then before you know, some of them are in prisons. So, I looked at what was happening to my people. I say my people, and that didn't actually sit well with me. And so I've made a significant contribution in supporting the Black community.
That's tremendous to have that kind of insight, but not the insight, but taking action to do that. Since you were honored for some of this work, what were some of what do you call the achievements that were recognized for this kind of investment on yourself?
Well, in many ways, I worked with 22 of the multinationals in London. So it was places like a number of the banks. They came together through the London Enterprise Agency. BBC, London Transport. It was before the Tory government tear up the system, as it were. And so I developed a career development program, a personal development and career development program for people from Black and minority communities, and to support them to know how to present themselves, understanding how the system works, getting their CVs together, teaching them some political skills, the nuances, this is how you play the game, or not play the game, or, those sorts of things, teaching them interviewing skills, and understanding their own strengths and how to run, how to articulate their strengths, how to run with their strengths, how to negotiate, how to communicate with impact, how to influence, so those sorts of things. Now, where did I get that from? Uh, what I haven't shared with you that is that I believe in lifetime learning. And so
Mm.
my first degree is in psychology. My master's degree is in health promotion. I used to do a lot of volunteering and on a Saturday, and I worked with a place which called the Industrial Society, as it was then. It's now renamed in England as the Work Foundation. So on Saturdays, I used to go and volunteer. And as a matter of volunteering, I won an ESSA scholarship. So I was the recipient of being taught how to sell myself, as it were, in the
Wow.
marketplace, and how to negotiate, and all the things that I was passing on, I had learned through that. So my first degree is in psychology, as I said, and my master's degree is in health promotion. So I put those things together because in psychology I had majored on the cognitive and social development of the child and young people. Yeah.
This is wonderful. As I listen to you, all of the skills, we live now in the age of AI, and a lot of people are fearing that it's going to take our jobs. But the list of skills that I hear you imparting to these young people are so human skills that machine can't do. And
Exactly.
so I just applaud you for doing that. Are there, as you look out into the future, are there other stuff you'd like to do, or you'd like to even multiply set of people coming behind you to be able to continue this great work?
Well, up to 2 years ago, I often said, I am yet to do my greatest work. But if you were
Mm.
to ask me what that greatest work is, I couldn't tell you. I could not articulate it to you. It's just a knowing within my being. I am getting a deeper insight into that because most of my work at the moment, as I said, is executive coaching, and I work with the civil service, which is the the servants of the government, and um, significant numbers of those people who have gained director positions from the Black community, I have actually supported to gain that. So I was at the recent opening of the state opening of Parliament. I was invited, and I found myself in a very prime position in the royal box. And along
Wow.
was someone from the Crown Estate, who's a senior person who I coach, and he was introducing me to his wife, who was there with him, and he said, "This is Dame Neslyn, and if you look at the British civil service at the moment, you 9 out of 10, or possibly even more, of the people who have significant positions and at director level have been supported by Dame Neslyn. So this is her achievement and contribution to life."
Boy, awesome. There are folks that are in the field doing volunteer work, um, raising up, serving in the communities like you're talking about. Do you have a word of inspiration to give them this morning, to give them to inspire them to continue this work?
Well, you know, for me, it's always about giving something back. I have learned through my own lived experience to never be afraid to take a chance. And so So I said to you, while I was volunteering, I was offered a scholarship. The there's no vacuum in nature. When
Mm.
you give, you see, you remember our people used to say, our seniors used to say, and I suppose they took it in a sort of biblical word, is grandmother used to say, girl, do good and good will follow you.
Mm.
Right? And then we have another story when say which is have some biblical references to it. Cast your bread on the waters and it returned in many days.
Amen.
So I sort of learned that the important thing is never be afraid to take a chance. Um, your greatest failure is not to try. Be in synergy with your heart and
Mm.
do what you love and love what you do. And in doing what you love and loving what you do, raise the bar for another person. So as you step off the stage, you should be enabling somebody else to step on as well. So, and in one of my books, where I talk about from the impossible to possible, the very first chapter in there is be your best. So I have really learned to be my best at all times. And I say to everyone else who is giving a contribution, the competition is not with another person, the competition is with you. And
Mm.
so, and your competition is to be your best at all times because your fingerprints, you're unique. So no other person have your fingerprints. No other person have your voice. Your voice is unique. You know, we have dialect and you can say, oh yes, that's a Jamaican dialect, but it's a unique voice. So know your vision, know your mission, and always live in integrity. Don't sell yourself out because when you sell yourself out, you know, it doesn't sit well in your heart. So I'd say expand your horizon. The universe won't give you an inspiration without you having the skills to do it. Everything you need to know. So what I say is say yes to life, and life will actually say yes to you. Energy will go where your attention is. When you put your attention in, even if you don't know how, the that's not the important thing. Is to know why. Why are you interested? Why are you engaged? Why do you want to make a contribution? And when you are clear about your why, the universe will bring all the things that you need. So when you put your attention onto something, energy goes where attention is. And where your attention is, there you are. I have learned to action my goals. And as a result of actioning my goals, I have achieved my potential. I've also learned that the important thing is to communicate with love, to communicate with kindness and emotional intelligence, resolve conflicts, and negotiate win-win outcomes. So I may not always get what I want, but is there something that I can live with that will engage the other person to do business with me next time? Because if I take all that I can get and the other person is feeling that they have lost, they won't want to do business with me next time round. So go for win-win outcomes and influence with integrity. Always operate with flexibility because opportunities are always there. And nurture your talents, but nurture the talents of others.
Boy, then Neslyn, you've given us this morning baskets upon baskets of wisdom and practical life. Thank you so much for spending some time with us and sharing so generously.
And it is my pleasure. And I would say, if you want to look at some of my the works, if you know,
Yes.
on Amazon.com, if you type in my name, Neslyn Watson Drouet, my books will come up, and I would recommend From Impossible to Possible.
So the book of recommendation, go to Amazon, folks, and From Impossible to Possible. I know where I'll be heading shortly to pick up to gain some more of your wisdom. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
Yes, and it's the second edition, so it's the one.
All right, thank you. It is a cover here. Look at those bold words. You can't miss it. Wonderful.
Okay.
Maybe we should have another interview just to talk about the details of some of that's on the work itself. We've talked about your life, and we can certainly have a follow-up talking about some of what you've captured here beyond what we've talked about this morning.
It will be my pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Oh, fantastic.
God bless.